rescue license, and then really defining what a safe dog shelter is and isn't. So you can look forward to those.
Question on that.
Sure.
Have those been worked through with the commission?
Yes, we worked very closely between the department, the Animal Control Advisory Board, took a lot of public input before putting them forward, and of course worked with the legal department.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Rivera?
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. So I was wondering, I assume that we're going to have a work session on that. It'll be a pretty big topic. Can we make sure to invite the members of the commission to attend whatever work sessions we have?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can I just add something? That Suzanne and I have been talking with Natasha about the agenda for the coming months and what we'll be discussing, and so that's one of the topics. We might do that at the next health policy committee meeting. We were trying to figure out if it was that or substance misuse, so if we don't do that, we'll talk about that scheduling that.
Great.
Thank you, Ms. Whitman. Thank you.
Our emergency preparedness team went to the Anchorage Fire Department open house with our medical ambulance bus and gave tours to over 700 people. It was a really exciting event. We're able to talk to that many people about all of the different ways to prepare for emergencies. The team also participated in the Postal Service Biohazard Detection System exercise at the Postmark Facility Drive. We're a partner in emergency preparedness with the USPS and would be responding to any biological event that may occur at that facility. So that was a great opportunity. On the child care licensing front, we continue to prepare for a child care facility immunization policy. We've talked about that a little bit at this committee, and that work is continuing. And we also received a grant to purchase flame retardant chemical-free nap mats for child care facilities and homes. And we hosted a one-to-one exchange for old products for the new healthy products for children. And it was really great. It was a partnership with THREAD as well as Alaska Community Action on Toxins. And they provided education, and it was just a really positive community event. On the Community Safety and Development Program, our 2019 HUD Action Plan is out for public comment. That should be moving forward to the Assembly for review in August, and that really outlines our program and budget priorities for 2019 on our HUD projects. In June, we have had our Emergency Solutions Grant program increase the dollars available, and so we're distributing, instead of what's normally about $1,000 to $2,000 for homeless assistance, it's $10,000, and this was really great because it's helped 10 households with eviction notices remade in their homes. Community health nursing has been getting out in the community more than ever, and they look forward to participating with many of our other programs in the department at the Pride Festival on June 29th. We will be marching in the Equity Parade with our mobile health clinic, and then we'll also have our Wellness on Wheels clinic out at the event. We'll be providing testing and education and immunizations, so hopefully we'll get to see a lot of people out there and connect with them. Nutrition classes. WIC started issuing e-cards today, our WIC program, so it's gone from a check system to a debit card system, which is really great because the families can shop when they need to shop instead of having to shop all at one time with a paper check. So that's just launched today, so we're looking forward to some great return on that. And lastly, I'll talk about our environmental health services. We're very busy at this time. The summer inspection season is off and running. We have lots of temporary events and weekend events throughout the summer, and we're have inspectors out over the weekends doing food safety inspections and educating our vendors. And the team collaborated with the State of Alaska Epidemiology Office and our public health nurses on an investigation of a confirmed norovirus outbreak at a rehabilitative center here in the municipality. So those are sort of the activities going on in our very diverse department.
Thank you for the update. We've got a question from Mr. Weddleton.
You do cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
So,
That was cherry picked because there was a lot more.
so on your Title 17 changes, I remember there was some conflict between Title 17 and Title 21 that they said opposite things. Is that part of your process?
I am not recalling what that issue is
Okay, I might have
off
to
the top of my
I
head,
don't remember.
but we should look at that if there is a conflict for
I
sure.
think it has something to do with kennels or something like that.
The
You said
outdoor
one thing, we
keeping.
said another or something. And then we got a long report from the Watershed and Natural Resource Advisory Commission on using poisons to kill choke cherries. And you're really the department that arbiter on what you can use and when. I don't know, are we scheduled to do anything with that report?
We have a work session scheduled.
Yes,
We
have a
do
work
have some.
session.
Is there something like an AO written, or we're just gonna have a work session?
We're having a work session on the resolution, which the resolution in and of itself suggested adopting an AO to rescind the previous action that the Assembly took.
Thank you, Mr. Weddleton. Any other questions or comments from members? Thank you, Ms. Betko, for that update. I feel like there's a joke somewhere in there about the cemetery solstice celebration, but I'm unable to pull it off. So we'll go ahead and start our conversation about the Tobacco 21 electronic smoking ordinance, revised ordinance. And if there are some of you in the audience, Emily, Marge, who want to sit up here, I know you've had a lot of input, and hopefully we'll start with an overview from Mr. Gates, who will walk us through the changes in this revised ordinance and then have some discussion. So please feel free to grab a seat at the table. Mr. Gates, would you go ahead and take us through it? The changes?
Madam Chair, so this draft ordinance, I guess, I've been waiting for a while, and basically it sort of combines two ordinances that we saw previously that were recently postponed indefinitely. One about minors in session, and the other about changing the age to purchase to 21. The second one about electronic smoking products. So this ordinance, the difference in the whereas paragraphs, there's not many changes from those previous ones that you've seen in previous drafts. Sure, please let me know if I need to speak up or repeat anything. And I guess the other preface is this is intended to combine, I guess, the best of the best from SB 15, which the state passed last year, which addressed electronic smoking products and included the of tobacco sales regulations in state law, and also the best of the model policy that was issued last April from a coalition of several organizations, including the Bank Association and Cancer Society and several others, and which was, I guess, promoted as an ideal law for local governments to pass. And of course, though, we have to match together with how our code works and model policy and state law and come up with this product. So I'm going to walk through, I guess, what this does. So in our current code, before any of these changes, we have several provisions in Title 14, which is administrative enforcement, and it has civil fines for certain violations, and that's where you find our tobacco sales regulations. And so I guess to just start with the ordinance and walk through what it says here on page 2, section 1, it adds a new section. So previously you had definitions scattered in the other sections, and I instead pulled all the definitions relevant to tobacco sales regulations here to a new section, 147005. So several of these definitions are taken from the model policy. Distribute an electronic smoking device are pretty much verbatim from the model tobacco control policy. The retail adults only tobacco store, that's line 34, that's something that's in our existing code. It they don't have that in state law or model pass. Those two just talk about tobacco retailers, some which may focus primarily on tobacco, or how to retail adults only tobacco store. And those stores where people under the age of 19 are allowed to enter. But this ordinance will change that to 21, except with some exceptions, and I'll get to those a little later.
Let me pause you a
In the
second,
definition,
Mr. Gates, just to note
interrupt
that.
me anytime for questions, please. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to note for the record, we've been joined by Mr. Constant. Thank you.
Oh, no questions, okay.
Members have it.
Okay. The next definition, line 47, is tobacco product. And this is a very stuffed definition. So in the past, some of our code stated tobacco, cigars, stogies, and so forth, in a whole bunch of places. And now in this ordinance, we're using the term tobacco product, and in this definition it includes everything. And then throughout the other sections, mostly tobacco product, it includes everything in this definition. And that's just a, I guess, approach that is taken many times in legal drafting. And then the last definition for tobacco retailer is intended to include any store that sells tobacco products. So we've got the retail-only tobacco stores and tobacco retailers, every other store that sells tobacco products. So some of these regulations apply to both, some of them will apply only to the adult-only tobacco stores. So section 2, we're editing, modifying 1470-20. Subsection A is deleting a lot, and it really begins at page 4, line 17. So subsection A is about retail sales, generally restricted access, and subsection some of it's just a language change. It's generally not changing what retailers are required to do in terms of restricting access to tobacco products. Restrict access so that nobody but the sales clerk can retrieve or handle the tobacco products until it's sold. We see that currently. And I don't think that this is really going to change that requirement very much. But it does change tobacco products, in which tobacco products are have access restricted. And that will include that stuffed definition, electronic smoking products are required to have restricted access, just like cigarettes. So in subsection B starts on line 46, the retail adults only tobacco store regulations. So these also, excuse me, my glasses. Subsection 1 is about restricting access. They shall not allow anyone under the age of 21, it used to be 19, changed to 21, or like 21 ever, access to the store. There were exceptions. One was a current exception accompanied by a parent or legal guardian, and I have taken this and modeled it a little bit after our state law, which allows someone accompanied by a spouse who's attained legal age to also enter. Someone under 21, 18, 19, moves someone 21 or over, or spouse, they could enter that person. Subsection B here, small b, this is about employers who will currently the age of 19, people can be employed and handle and sell to others like tobacco products. And this, since we're increasing the age to 21, this part is actually what Mr. Peterson had suggested as an amendment when we had this before us last April. And basically doesn't require, I guess, the employers to, excuse me, this isn't, that's a little off base. Let me back up there. This one says people 19 and 20 years of age can continue to work there currently, but after this ordinance passes, those employers for the retail adults-only stores can't hire new employees that are 19 and 20. Right, so it's sort of grandfather's statement. This is only for the adults-only stores. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. We have a question from Mr. Dunbar.
Yeah, two questions. So I had thought that we had had a discussion, Mr. Peterson did not support a sunset, so did he or that's essentially what this is, right? That, not a sunset exactly, but a restriction on people 19 or 20 being employed in these places permanently. But the second question on that is adults only tobacco store. So that's a very specific subset of these establishments. Is that right? Is that defined? Adult only tobacco store? Because that's broader. That's more narrow than a tobacco retailer. Is that legally defined?
Okay. Yes, that's in the beginning.
Okay, thank you. Okay, gotcha.
Okay, and to that first part that you asked me, right, Mr. Peterson didn't want to grandfather or sunset that for tobacco retailers, general retailers, Fred Meyer, gas stations, and so forth.
Right.
And I talked to him about what about the adults only tobacco stores, and he said that's okay. The sunset was okay. That's his intent. So if I could direct you to, I guess, jumping ahead, the next section. It's 1473. It's about selling tobacco products to persons under the age of 21. Then on page 7, line 19, subsection D, there something in the section prohibits an underage person from handling tobacco products in the course of lawful employment. And this is the subsection that Mr. Peterson had that sort of embodies his intent as a man. So a gas station that employs someone who's 18 or even 17, that employee could still handle tobacco products over the counter and sell to someone who's of legal age. They're so subject to all the requirements, their ID, and so forth. And that doesn't sunset, so that's forever. Like, so people from the Holiday gas stations or other Fred Meyer that sell tobacco products still have to let those persons under 18, 19, 20 or criminals. Is that answer your question?
A question from Ms. Quinn.
Dean, I was just going to add that Dean and John, Suzanne, and I all discussed this too, and felt like that was a good compromise since it didn't seem as necessary to have underage folks in these 21 and older locations. But obviously, we're open to conversation about that. But I think that's sort of the compromise we ended up with, given what Pete wanted to.
Ms. Zolotel?
Thank you. Just for my own edification, if you're under 21, can you work at a package liquor store? I don't know the answer to that.
Sounds like no from an alcohol expert in the back.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Dawson?
The theory that we're operating under in that particular narrow bandwidth is, we heard testimony by email, probably, I don't know if you received it or not, timing, but that there were some stores that would have to meet to fire dozens of people. And I don't have the stomach to make a policy decision to throw people out of work. And so this was a compromise that would allow those people to maintain their jobs and at the same time update the policy to when they will become 21 in the next 2 years, and then that will just be the standard. But at the grocery store, it's a different issue because those are good entry-level jobs for people going into the area.
Thank you. Mr. Dunbar?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
So I see what the intent is here, but I'm wondering if the language can be misinterpreted to require you to fire those people. So, retail establishment, a retail adults only tobacco store shall not hire or offer employment. And I think what you mean is that initial, like bringing on new people, right? But if you see employment as kind of a continual thing that you're offering to someone, I'm just worried that a store might read that and say, well, offer employment, how's it different than employing someone? You can't offer you employment anymore, you're fired. I don't know. Is offer employment like a term of art? Hiring is something. Why don't we just take out offer employment and just have hiring? Because that to me is very clear. You can't hire somebody. But if someone's already employed there, then you can leave that, right? But regardless of what we do, I want this. We should explain this into the record when we have the public hearing about this, so so that no one misinterprets this as these group of people need to be fired. Okay.
Mr. Nate, that we did it.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Dunbar. We should wordsmith that a little bit, and I think, as you know, we don't have an AM, and the AM should probably explain exactly like you said, as well as a lot of other features of this ordinance, so that legislative intent here would be very clear. Getting back, I guess, to I was on page 5, and on 7, subsection B, about the age. Yes.
Mr. Weddleton has a question or comment?
More wordsmithing on that. And I was thinking, because this is at the premises, if you have a, maybe you have an office staff off-site, and you go through one of those people to your store, so that's not hiring, you're already hired. You're not hired. Maybe. I don't know. I had kind of a thought in my head, but you really want to get down to it. Because I know people are in my operation.
Yeah. I mean, look, I
Points made pretty well.
right.
Provide employment, so not provide employment in the premises.
Ms. Zolja? Thank you. I think here, because we're talking about the retail adult only tobacco, we're only gonna have those instances where people would be grandfathered in and moved around. So I think if it's just not hire anyone after the effective date, I think we're covered by the first part of that clause for what you're talking about. So if it's one of the shops that qualifies and you move it from location A to location B, they're still gonna fall in the first part of that clause. It's just that you can hire somebody new. That's how I read it.
Oh, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, because they'd already kind of been grandfathered in.
That's actually, if you might, a slight wrinkle that brings up though, because it says at the premises, right? And so what you just suggested, Ms. Elto, is to move them around to another location within the operation, right? So presume that they have 2 outlet stores. Then the way this reads at the premises, they can't actually switch to another location.
Can I just offer,
Ms. Quinn Davidson?
sort of what I was imagining was we would delete or offer employment at the premises too. So it should read after effective date, a retail adult only tobacco store shall not hire any person of age 12.
Wait, just at the premises.
I don't think we need premises,
What
right?
if you have an office number? I mean, open kegs, not offices, they're totally separate from the back.
But those aren't tobacco only.
Well, I think you're covered by the fact that it says retail adults only tobacco store, the word store. So if you have an LLC that owns that store and also has an office, I think they can work in the office.
But you would say tobacco.
But if they had an office that wasn't an LLC. Yeah,
Well, no, I mean,
see
like
what John's saying,
the
yeah.
store is not a legal entity. There's got to be some legal entity that controls both the store and
Yeah.
the office. And they're the ones that employ it, not the store. So the fact you've got the word store there, I think actually makes it clear.
That is the premises.
Yeah.
Well, and it's defined.
What's
That
that?
term is defined. Retail adult only tobacco store is very clearly defined for
As a premise.
It
Yeah.
says retail establishment.
You
Yeah.
delete at the premises.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Mr. Gates, you want to weigh in?
I think these ways you've all described, I wouldn't interpret them obviously. But I thought at the premises was referring to that brick and mortar location. I thought that's a locational reference. That's the reason I have that phrase in there, the tobacco retail store of those premises. I mean, I think you could have somebody that's working elsewhere with the same company, the same business owner, but just not have that retail store premises. That's how I was looking at it. I think your edit works as well. I don't think that there would be much confusion in terms of where the person can work. If it's at the retail tobacco, the adults only store. Adults only tobacco store.
Okay, any other comments on that part of the ordinance? Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward.
Okay, sure. So, yeah. So on page 5 on line 14, number 2, This is an exception. So perhaps an owner of a retail adults-only tobacco store doesn't want these exceptions. You know, an underage person with a parent, guardians, or employee, they don't want those exceptions. They can decide as a business decision not to allow anyone under the age of 21 or require them to leave. So that's a similar phrase that I have for package stores in our bigger state laws. So, and I think that's reasonable to leave that open. I'll refer to that again a little bit later. So, subsection C is about the posted warning signs. And so basically 1 and 2 are separate. One's for any retail establishment, the warning sign that's posted near the point of sale, cash register, right? Then 6 this language, I think it's for the language for the signs from the model policy. Number 2 is for the retail adults only tobacco store where you need to post them in the entrance to the store or no underage is proven premises. The A and B are intended to, I guess, 2B is to allow those businesses that have opted not to allow anyone at all under 21 enter, despite the exceptions to have a sign that's a little bit different, still complies with the section. So, and then number 3 is the dimensions. And I would note that Alex to Mr. Waterton's, research.
Practical nature.
Yes. We've decided that the lettering could be a ½ inch at least rather than 1.25 inches, what it used to be, so that it could fit on this page.
What we had before was impossible.
So in the current code, the size of the sign is a little larger, about remember right, 14 by 11, I think, and so we're making it smaller so that businesses can print from their printer and post it on their immediate receivers, trying to facilitate the ability to do this way. So, let's see. I guess that's all for that section 14.7.20. And there's penalties related to that, which we'll get to a little bit. The next section about selling or giving tobacco products to persons under the age of 21 and electronic smoking devices. I've included electronic smoking devices in Title 14.7.30, so that's clear in the reader of the code that it's not vague, even though I have the definition tobacco products. But throughout the section, we just use tobacco products, which includes those. So, and this whole part, you see there's a lot of changes, and all of this underlined language is mostly reflecting the model policy of the state statute. I guess one thing that I should note is the state law is still at the age 19, so we're a little bit different. We also have a different penalty structure than the state law. The state law has a $300 penalty. One of the amendments made by SB 91 to Title 29 of the Alaska Statutes prohibited a municipality from having a penalty for an offense that's in our criminal code for the state law in Title 11. And this is similar to a state criminal law in Title 11. We are not supposed to have a greater penalty, which was $300. We have a greater penalty for this one. But it's only for comparable. So I think that the way that we've written this, we're distinguished enough from the state law about selling to persons under 19 that we can have a different penalty structure. But I just want to highlight that issue for you because that might be something that comes up from time to time. Particularly if you find somebody in the challenge and they say, well, you'll find stuff of them state law, that's not allowed by Title 2570G. That might be one of the defenses that they use to challenge the penalty they've been given. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. I think we're different in another way. So A1 here says negligently sells a tobacco product to a person under 21 years of age. And the state law has no mental state element, it simply strips liability offense. Here we have mental state element, so that's a big distinction. I guess criminal lawyers say that's a big distinction between the state law and our code commission here. So I think that also protects sales clerk who, in good faith, has checked ID, they believe the person's overage, everything looks on the up and up, they comply with everything they're supposed to do. Circuit like says, but the person's actually under 21, and they haven't been negligent in that sales transaction. So I think that is sort of illustrates why that's distinct from how the state law would work.
Question from Mr. Dunbar.
Dean, can I ask you to sort of clarify that again? So I understand in general when we're doing criminal law, we have mens rea requirements. Looking at the fines here, I'm sorry, maybe I missed something. Did you say this is going to be a misdemeanor offense at times?
I'm sorry, no, but we have a much higher monetary penalty. It's still civil offense, anyone can cover criminal law, mostly because we have the interstate element, it's still a civil offense.
In your case, though, the clerk wouldn't be liable for the fine, right? Wouldn't it be the business entity that employs the clerk?
We have two different penalties, one for the business and one for the sales clerk. We'll get to that on the penalty section.
Okay, I guess I might support getting rid of the fines for the employee, and then going back to a strict liability standard, because it will make it much more, well, I don't know, can you give me a sense of how much more difficult it will be for our, would it be code enforcement or whoever is issuing the citations to prove them up?
I really don't know how to answer that question. I don't know if it'll be easier or more difficult.
Well, it would clearly be more difficult, but I'm wondering how much more difficult. The strict liability is just much easier to prove, right? Yeah, if you were getting rid of negligently, then sort of no questions asked. And that's how a lot of our civil fines are. There is no mens rea requirement. If you're speeding, you don't be negligently speeding. You're speeding, you can ticket, right? I think. I don't know. I've never had it.
Well, you get a chance to challenge it. When you're going to go and challenge your ticket, and what I heard Dean say is that if you got a ticket here and you didn't negligently sell, you checked the ID, you could go through and say it was the ID, I looked, I did all the things I was supposed to do, then basically you weren't negligent. You didn't have a conscious disregard for any of the things that you were supposed to do.
But doesn't that reverse isn't it on us to prove that they did it negligently? Or is it the act, is that enough? And then it's like an affirmative defense?
There's the burden.
Yeah, isn't the burden of proof on us to prove that it was negligent when we write the ticket?
Yes. Well,
So how do we
you
do
didn't
that?
check the ID, I mean, that would be, that
Right,
would
you
be.
sold to someone who was under 21, so.
And didn't check the ID, I mean, so you
Yeah.
didn't do any of the things that you were supposed to do.
So if they were to find, let's say they were to find someone with cigarettes on them, a kid, outside, and they were saying, where'd you get these? So they got it from there. Like, that wouldn't be enough. They're going to have, if you want to do this, if you want to write these fines, we're going to have to basically sting operations.
How else would we enforce it?
Mr. Thompson?
I actually think that the point is that we would have to have some evidence to lead us to believe, because our code system is based. We don't actually go out and try to trap people into these kinds of things. And so the likelihood of a violation being caught would most likely, in my opinion, be tied to a place that had a pattern of behavior of sales to young people, in which there was some established communication to us that, hey, this is actually happening here, and we would be tuned in and monitoring. And so I think that the standard negligently is good because it provides some burden. But ultimately, we're only going to see these cases happen, and most people are just going to comply because most people are rule followers. There will be cases where you have people that are going to break the rules, and their pattern of behavior is what's going to bring it into our attention, not an incident where we start sweeping and sending in 18-year-olds or, we just don't do that.
Thanks,
the other day and sort of had similar back and forth. My impression, I guess, at the time was that we couldn't do what we wanted to do without using negligently, because it wasn't my preference either. I didn't realize Dean, I didn't realize that was tied specifically to the employee fine. So is it true that we could eliminate the employee fine and then not have to use negligently? And then the second piece is that Dean was also talking with the municipal prosecutor about a couple of things in this. So Dean, did you speak with her about that and how you would prosecute this?
No, I have not.
Okay.
It stands, I think, out of town on vacation right now.
Okay.
But I should. I did obtain from APD some data in terms of the tickets they've issued under the political provisions for the past couple of years. I'm not positive, but I'm not sure if the municipal prosecutor actually gets involved in these prosecutions for civil claims.
And then can you respond to the other half of the question? I think I asked too many questions, but the other piece was, can you just confirm that if we were to eliminate the employee fine, we would not have to use the term negligently or that standard?
Well, not the way it's currently written. Negligence on line 17 here names the paragraph of A. It's also in A1, negligently sells. But, of course, we can edit so that it works the way you're suggesting. So, negligently sells will be tobacco retailer and selling strip liability for the employee with no penalty. We've already separated the penalty for the tobacco retail business from the employee selling. We can loosen the case to retailer. If you want the mental state to apply to the retailer, and strip liability on the employee.
So could we just have strict liability on everyone, but no penalty for the employee, or no? We would have to. Is that legally possible?
No, you could. The state does that. The state has no
Okay.
mental state element.
Okay, that's what, yeah.
Mr. Dunbar, you wanted to?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask sort of how other jurisdictions did it. I mean, so a lot of other jurisdictions have gone to this. You said the state doesn't have a mental state. Did we have an existing? Actually, I didn't even know. Did we have an existing municipal fine for selling to 19-year-olds or under 19, or was it just the state law?
Yes, and our current code uses the word negligently sells as well.
Okay.
And for other jurisdictions, I've only looked at Sitka and the state law and the bar policy. The three of them don't have a mental state element. So
The law policy doesn't have a mental state element. Huh.
no.
Can I ask our sort of partner organizations what you all think about this discussion? And if you don't have a comment, that's fine. But
I think the word negligently softens it and muddies it, and I don't think it's necessary.
I'm gonna plead the non-attorney card here.
that's fine. I just wanted to give you a chance.
Thanks, Mr. Davidson. Mr. Dunbar, do you want to comment?
Yeah, the last thing I would say is I'm sort of surprised that the retailers haven't made more of a stink about the fact that it is a strict liability offense. Because if you have the state level, because if you think about it from their perspective, somebody shows me a fake ID
Right.
and I sell it to them, and it turns out the ID was fake. How could I have known that? But what we're hearing is that in state law that's the case, and other jurisdictions are using model code that's the case, and they support Tobacco 21. Tobacco 21 doesn't have a mental state, so it must not be that big a deal for them. Probably because of how it's actually enforced or not enforced.
So we have Ms. Neiman and then Ms. Zelikoff.
Yes, through the chair, just setting aside the legal terminology and what's involved there in prosecuting case, it's not my area of specialty. I can tell you practically how the compliance checks happen at the state level, and we do call them compliance checks, not stings, because the idea is not to go get them, but actually work with vendors and do education with them and help them not help them do the right thing. So when the compliance checks are done, the youth that are involved in that, there's a whole state program around that. Those youth are told if they're asked for ID, they have to give their actual ID. They're not allowed to use a fake ID, or say they lost it, whatever, in an actual compliance check. So in terms of how this is going to work at the city level, having slightly different age than the state, what the state program has done with the city of Sitka is actually done some cooperative work when they go out and do their vendor education to help vendors train them on what they need to be doing, what they need to be checking for. They talk to the vendors in Sitka about age 21 instead of age 19. So that education piece is done. The compliance checks do require you to show a real ID. The example that you gave earlier of the kid outside says, "Oh, I got it from over there." That's never gonna be the thing that takes the retailer down. If there are a bunch of kids reporting that, there may be a reason to go have a chat with that vendor or actually do compliance checks with that vendor. But the compliance checks are done in a way that is not designed to track the vendor. If that helps.
Thank you for clarification, explanation. Ms. Zolotel?
Thank you. So I guess I'm trying to just kind of take a broader step back here. Is the intent for finding the person behind the counter selling it is that we think they're going to be doing it without the retailer's knowledge? I mean, why are we doing two different structures, I guess? I mean, should we just hold the retailer, do it off the hold of the property owner, kind of responsible for everything that happens there versus the individual acts of the employees? I mean, if we are thinking that employees will be acting roguely, I like the negligently then, because if they haven't been well trained or they haven't been given guidance, it gives them the opportunity to say, hey, wait, this, I was told to just do it this way. Because then I don't know that it's a, conscious disregard for the risk. So that's kind of my thought on it. But if there's a reason, so if there's any rationale there, I'd be happy to hear it.
We discussed that. I don't know if John or Allison, if you want to. One aspect we discussed was the fact that in some cases, the retailers do provide the training to the employees, and the employees may not actually follow the process. So, and Mr. Dunbar, you want to?
I just want to comment that then to me the recourse is you find the retailer and the retailer fires the employee.
Which we also discussed.
Yeah, I don't think, I don't know if this is the case in other sort of areas of the law like this where you go after the employee. I think usually you hold the retailer accountable. You're saying that's not the case?
I don't understand why we aren't doing both. Like in the alcohol industry, if you have a TAM violation, you're serving someone who's underage, the server gets a fine and the establishment gets a fine at the same time because it's all in the same bed. And so I'm curious why we went away from that model and we're kind of trying to define between who might be the responsible party.
I guess
Mr. Weddleton, you want to address it?
And so actually when we started with the previous version, it had equal fines for the employees. And we figured, well, okay, $500, now they lost their apartment, their car, their life, and they're homeless, and now they're a real problem. Not that the smoking's not bad, but so we bumped it down to 50. But if you're there, you got your clerk working the thing, and his pals come on, Joe,
Yeah.
not worth it, man. It cost me $50.
Yeah.
That kind of thing helps.
But what
takes
it
out peer
costs-
pressure off.
But once you fire that employee, I mean, with that employee, it's not going to cost $50, it's going to cost them whatever their paycheck is for the next 2 weeks. Right? Isn't that the recourse?
I mean, that would also work.
Especially because you're going to get a $500 fine and be like, you're fired.
So we've had Sadie in the queue for a while here, and then Mr. Constant and Mr. Rivera.
Okay, so under the municipal alcohol code right now, there is a criminal negligence standard for any licensee or agent or employee to sell to anyone under the age of 21. They also require training by the licensee or the employer to any employees. And if they break this law and they find that they're criminal negligent, they immediately are fired. So that's just the current code standards for any liquor, selling any liquor to people under age 21. So that's all. And misdemeanor is the offense if you're found criminally negligent for selling as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't understand why we're not in some way paralleling that, and maybe with less of a standard on criminal per se, but it seems to me we would be wise to keep these parallel so people kind of have an understanding of how it works. But I'm okay however we get there, but really, I just am curious why we deviated from that.
Okay, we'll go to. Do you want to respond to that?
Well, I just have a general comment. Thank you. So I've been keeping my mouth shut because this is embarrassing, but I actually have a personal story here. So I was 19 working at the Car Safeway at back then Sears Mall when it was still there, and working at the last year. Thanks. And I was going to Alaska Pacific University, and I don't know why I was just off that day, but there was a sting. Let's be frank, we all think that they're actually stings. I sold to someone who was doing a sting, and I got fired. That was the recourse, because it was something that the operator, it was a huge impact on them. They have to deal with the state now. They have to pay all these fines, training for their employees, all these things, and I wasn't worth it. So they fired me, and I think that's probably what would happen. And I was 19. I wouldn't want to be fired and have to deal with this big fine of 19 and selling at a Car Safeway.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Dunbar?
I just wanted to respond to what Chris was saying. I think there are some ways this parallels alcohol, but I think there are also some important ways it doesn't. Right? Alcohol, we know, causes a lot of really dangerous crimes in our cause, it contributes to. And then the TAMS process is like a licensing process, right? It's a lot more training to become a TAMS card holder versus 19-year-old Felix or I was 17 or 18-year-old me when I was working at Fred Meyer, right? So I think there's just sort of that to me is the difference enough to not define people.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. Stokey?
Thank you. Mr. Dunbar is correct and consistent with what's in the model policy that the burden should be at the tobacco retailer level because it's incumbent on the employer, on the business to have the system for training and upholding the law and holding their employees accountable. Also in the model policy, it does have a section for employees, but it specifies a non-monetary fine. So if you do that, then it should be education or community service or whatnot. But the primary monetary should be at the retailer level.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, we only have 20 more minutes, although a lot of the discussion left is on the fines. But maybe Dean can check in.
Yeah, one last.
Okay. Go ahead.
I want to point out parallels to the liquor alcohol industry. That subsection D I mentioned on page 7, which allows someone who's an employee at a station or retailer to handle tobacco and sales. That's different than liquor law. The liquor laws doesn't allow someone they can be employed at a restaurant with a liquor license. They can't serve the alcohol though. So that would be something that's different already. So if you want to be parallel, that would be changing out the more things than you want to. But anyways, whether a penalty should be applied to the employees, it's a good debate, and it's a policy call, which way the body sponsors what to go. So I guess I can fashion the language that should discuss in terms of making a strict liability for the tobacco retailer and the penalty for employees.
Sorry, John.
Well, you'll be happy to know that when we were discussing it, it was 500. John was the one saying we shouldn't be burning employees here; they're going to get fired. So, I mean, he said that all of this conversation, we were kind of going round and round. So, yeah, you deserve it. And we can discuss this more, I guess, offline. But I think I'm persuaded that taking it out makes sense, and that sort of opens up to whether we want to do strict liability or negligence, and maybe Dean and Sadie can do a bit more research and think about that, and then we can come to terms with that before we introduce it. Does that seem reasonable, or Mr. Weddleton?
You know, that seems reasonable in some regards. Taking away the fine for the employee, I think I'm okay with it. Let's do a scenario where you have a bad employee, it happens once in a while, and he hands a card to a pal, doesn't charge him, it's totally free, because he's a bad employee. And now I'm the retailer, one I got stolen from now, I get this huge fine. And I wasn't negligent, I trained him, he's a big.
So, as your defense attorney, I would say that his criminal act broke your, sort of, what do you call it, actus reus. You no longer are responsible for that because he committed a criminal act.
Strict liability.
Yeah, not a good.
Well, no, because he stole from John and gave the pack to the person.
I don't sell cigarettes.
Oh, I know. But I'm saying, John's retail establishment did not sell or otherwise transfer that good. That good was stolen from him and then given to this
Okay,
person.
but step back from that and go to my best friend. I'm going to sell him this carton even though he's 18. And so,
Well, then you're firing that person. You're taking the fine.
Still within the course of employment, though, and that's usually strict liability. Just to throw that out there.
It's not in the course of employment they steal from you.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, it can be though, because you're still working in your job, and you're kind of saying that you are working through your employment. I know you're stealing it, but it's
because
pretty close.
I mean, in law school you do all these hypos, but it's
I know.
like, I drive to drop something off, and that's my job, but I make a stop at the gas station on the way, and that's not part of the job. Whatever you do there, the employer's not liable for. So I think it's sort of, there's this argument that like that wasn't part of your job to break the law or to. Dean wants to give us an actual answer.
I'm not sure, but I would point to subsection 18, and that's it doesn't say selling, it says someone 21 and older to exchange or give a tobacco product. So maybe I've stolen a tobacco product, but I give it to my friend. You know, if they already got that, I'll be discovered like they're 18 and got the house.
That's A. That's A.
A2 on line 22,
Page 6. Page 6. Page
So
6.
Yeah.
A1 is selling the tobacco product, A2 is exchanging and giving, and I think that's intended to cover, suppose, Uncle Bob giving it to someone under 21, not 7 or even.
But that's,
Yeah, it doesn't really cover the.
that's the portion for the employee, right? The retailer is responsible for B or the new thing here.
Well,
Or for like an uncle gives it to that was John's example, Uncle Bob, real jerk, keeps giving all the kids cigarettes.
the way that this is sort of structured, it doesn't refer to retailer or employee in A here. That only refers to a retailer or employee or other person in the penalties section, and that's when we need that distinction between who's committing the offense. But here in A, it's any person. So in penalties, where I dealt with the different types of people doing the actus reus.
Okay, so we have about 15 minutes left. Well, before we move on, Mr. Middleton?
Well, now that we're back at this, so we're looking at page 6, line 22. So it's unlawful to sell the cigarettes. And this happens if the person is 21 years of age or older and negligently exchanges. Well, what if it's a 19?
yeah, good catch.
Right?
We're giving them immunity if you're not 21.
Yeah. There'd be no fine, stop that.
But
Yeah, I do.
Isn't that intentional?
That's a good point.
Because you
We
don't want
could
to
take out the
penalize
age.
children.
No, we're going to penalize 19 to 20-year-olds though.
The ones who continue to sell, have the job that are grandfathered in,
Next
like
year, too.
they're in the store, but they're not 21, and then there's like this whatever 2-year period when we still have people.
No, that's not, I mean, in a
Oh, yeah,
convenience
regular.
store,
Or
they
a
could be
convenience store, you're right,
17,
yeah,
right?
so, yeah.
So this, if they, I would just 21 years and older, delete that.
Yeah, because it's not material.
And, so just start with negligent. Should we leave that one in there?
So
Did you
this
get that,
is a
Dean?
consensus to take out that phrase, 21 years and older.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's out.
And for now, begin with negligently until we decide on the liability issue.
Okay.
Mr. Gates, we have about 12 minutes left. Do you want to take us through any of the points? I know we haven't talked about the vending machines yet.
Or they take care of themselves.
I know,
Yeah.
that's what I said. Do we have those? Don educated all of us. Then again, at the long
Okay, so we'll go ahead and keep going through in the remaining time here.
So it's also in substance A1 and 2, selling, exchanging, A3 is about maintaining the vending machine. It needs to be in compliance with subsection C. So I guess maybe I'm on page 6, A3, line 24, refers to maintaining the vending machine in compliance with subsection C. And C requires that vending machines are restricted to only liquor licensed premises, right? Bars, clubs, or package stores, and also place that's, well, private employers, C2's employee break room, or other controlled area of a private workplace. It's not generally public place. It must have warning signs. So C1, I want to point out a difference in the state law and what we have here in this draft. State law had a phrase saying that the vending machine has to be as far as practicable from the main entrance to the establishment. And we took that out so that it just needs to be a reasonable place where you can monitor it continuously. And that's what the sponsors had suggested. So there's just not distinction from state law. I wanted to point out. So.
Oh, Mr. Thompson?
Dean, that doesn't change though, anything, right? Because they still have to comply with the state law, so it still has to be the farthest place away from this business.
Yes.
I want to say, well, yeah, they still need to comply with the state law. If they're charged under the state law, that's fine. If they're charged under a municipal code, we're a little different. We have different penalties. You know, so under state law, would be $300 every year.
Can we maybe just move to the penalties? Because I think we only have 10 minutes and we have specific
Sure.
questions.
And let me just ask you, how many members of the public are here who want to testify? One? Okay.
You know, we have time, I guess. So, one question about the penalties is in the model policy, it was suggested that there should be suspension from being able to sell tobacco products. That's not included here. So, you guys, if you have opinions on that, too, whether we should include it, why or why not? Do you think the structure of, you know, sort of the fines getting higher after multiple acts makes sense? And then what you think generally of the fine structure? And then I want to note, Dean, we had planned on 1470.035 right at the top of page 9 to say owner's failure to supervise the vending machine. So if you can insert that, Dean. Is that okay to do? I just want to make sure we get.
Sure, that's fine. Sure. Through the chair, Emily Neiman. Regarding the sales license suspension, yes, that would be the model. However, the city doesn't do business license endorsements for tobacco retailers. That's done at the state level.
Okay.
So the city doesn't have anything to suspend.
Okay. So this makes sense in our structure, even if it's not.
In your structure,
that
it
ideal.
does make
Okay.
sense if you want to do a city endorsement. probably can take another crack at that, but,
Yeah, that might be
that's
a step 2 if we decide to.
yes, my assumption going forward was that would, the state law is still in place. Those penalties for selling, to anyone under 19 are going to be, a suspension of your sales license. Under the city code, it would be defined, it just isn't the structure.
Okay. Great. Any other comments?
No, please, would you want to follow up with anything?
Yeah, just any comments about the amounts or whether the structure makes sense? We were looking to you guys for feedback because we just did our best.
It follows the minimums and the structure that are generally in the model, so.
Okay, and you would recommend removing the employee? Considering our early conversation?
For monetary, certainly.
Okay. Mr. Thompson?
Yeah, so if we have an enforcement action, does that stop the state from using our evidence to also enforce?
For whatever their license removal is, you mean?
Oh, no, broadly, the question of you find someone in violation, they're selling to minors, whatever the violation might be, if there's a parallel piece of the state law, if we get, because I have seen a number of times where we do something, therefore the state won't do something, right? And I'm just curious what happens, the implications between the two laws.
Ms. Zalato, did you want to address that?
No, I have another, offense.
And Mike can wait, that can be answered offline.
So do we want to add an offense for failure to post the signage and fine them for that? Or to post the correct signage that doesn't comply with the lovely printout that Mr. Weddleton has brought? Because I think that signage is important.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if there is a current parallel fine structure in state law, but it seems to make sense. It's a fundamental.
Yes, totally makes sense. Thank you.
Can we go ahead and add that to this?
I'm not sure I get what we're adding, if we can sign the failure to post the sign. And I think that's covered, the 147020 restrictions on the manner of selling, includes the signage requirement in that section. It's $500. You could specify, break it down, so it would say the manner of selling in terms of restricted access and different penalty for the failure to have proper signage.
So that's the $500 fine then?
That's a little.
Well, right now it's 500 for anything in the section, but we could change that for the sign. I think that I include the word substantially, like defining for the words on signs, so that gives a little leeway in terms of the exact language of the sign. But if you don't have a sign, then that's the $500 fine.
Can I just ask that you say something like including signage or reference that that's what that means, since it wasn't immediately clear to all of us?
Sure. Sure.
Mr. Weddleton, you want to comment?
It is way unfair to charge someone $500 because this fell off their window. I recommend adding a sign, failure to post sign, $25. If they're going to post a sign, then they won't break the rule anyway. You know, things happen to signs. And as I've said 3 years ago, we are required to post 16 signs in 3 different locations in our stores. My dining center store is this big, and I've defined 3 places to post this. We get a lot of signs, and they need to fall down, and they get covered with something, and to find someone $500 is absolutely ridiculous. You have an incentive to do it anyway. By the way, of those 16 signs, there are 3 or 4 absolute contradictions between the different laws which are required to post. And it would be one more if I was on the list of people who get hired up. We call it slave people. Human trafficking.
I don't know that in vogue, but do you all have, do you know from the model policy what the penalty is for signage? It's okay if you don't, please.
I don't know what the penalty cost is, I know that there is.
There is a
We
penalty.
just said-
And by the way, excuse me, there is a penalty for, on the employee selling at the state level.
Oh, there
state
is?
law. Yes, I don't know what that dollar amount is either. But
Well, then they're already gonna get penalized at this level. That makes sense.
well, I think maybe we have a consensus, but I would like to see this penalty on before we take it out, regardless of the state laws. As long as the state laws, I don't particularly agree.
Suzanne's trying to get control.
It's okay, go ahead.
Does anyone have thoughts on the 25 or what that amount should be? Is there some consensus?
What's the difference in say 250? So, well, you could have this step up. You could have a restriction of manner of selling product first offense 250.
Someone's gonna blatantly knock the sign down.
Yep.
It's gonna get nailed on this other stuff time and again. It's just signs are a fickle thing. I mean, most of us put them where we gotta put them and they're there. But things can happen. With off some of us, or the window is broken, I got broken into, we smashed the window, that had my sign on it. Okay, well now someone comes and says, where's your sign? $800 window across the front.
I think it's definitely oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just like we did with section 30 below, where we divided it by A, B, and C, I think this one is again where we should divide it by B and C. I'm not sure if A is just definitions, but B and C where C is the signage, and B is this restricted access, so that way we can have the two tiers of fines, because the restricted access, that makes sense at the higher level, but yeah, the signage, I mean, if we wanted to come into conformity with some of the other things, I mean, I guess $50, but $25.50, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Did we get that, Dean?
So the penalties grow 1470-20E for the restricted access, 20C for the signage, etc. What was the penalty email? Did you guys throwing out there?
maybe 50 for signage.
25 is nothing. It's not worth, literally not worth the time of the person to write the ticket.
Fair.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
but it's in the context of a bunch of other enforcement issues, and so, they're not, if it's a sign, it's not our biggest problem.
So we're just about out of time here, and I think, Mr. Chair, after this is introduced and moving forward, we're going to need a work session. And Dean, what's our timeline on introduction at this point? I know there are a lot of...
Well, from here, you can introduce that for next meeting. If you want it on the regular agenda, we have to send it by Friday. Oh, actually, sorry. There's 3 weeks until the July 9th meeting, so next week Friday, we've got 10 days.
Can I ask a process question? Would we have a work session? I mean, we're almost all here.
I was going to ask that. So I know we've in 2 committee meetings now have discussed this. I know that there are some questions still. Perhaps the drafters can meet and finalize whatever policy questions and directions that there are. And then I think the AM will hopefully address any changes that you make. I don't foresee right now the need for another work session on this.
Great. All right, and then Mr. Trainee, did you want to speak?
Quick question for you. Why don't you ask Dean Gates to explore doing excise tax on e-cigarettes? I did that with tobacco, $2 a pack. What's fun about excise tax is they're not repealable by the public. So if you do put excise tax into effect, make it commensurate with this product, because we've got no way to ensure compliance, except excise tax will bring money into the city to ensure compliance. We were talking about compliance exams, not, I forget what you were calling it, spies. Anyway, compliance were done with federal dollars. 3 years ago, that ran out. So you don't see on your alcohol any compliance exams anymore. It doesn't happen. They don't have money. So you want compliance exams done on this. An excise tax would allow you to do that. I'm sure Dean Gates is capable of writing one for you.
Okay. And thank you, Mr. Trainee. We've had a little bit of discussion about timing and when we would formally discuss the issue of taxation. That's something after this we take up. Was that the extent of your public testimony?
Well, yeah.
That wasn't 3 minutes.
You guys' game.
You don't have your
Mr. Constant?
It's interesting to contemplate an excise tax on the vape pens, because we have a fiscal note that shows, because we're going to remove 2 years of potential customers, we have a $2 million loss. And so we could actually, through an excise tax, probably come to a point where we have a zero fiscal note, or maybe even a slight gain. And so maybe it's not something to tie to this legislation, or maybe we should have that conversation. But it's interesting and maybe wise.
coming up.
Dunbar?
I had Rose Foley, our former finance staffer, look into a tax on e-cigarettes a couple of years ago. I was thinking about this too. And probably because there's a lack of volume so far, but you had to tax pretty steeply to get any significant amount of money. If that makes sense. It was I mean, I define significant, but the sort of level I was comfortable with, you're bringing like 400,000. It wasn't millions.
I would guess the market has changed in the last couple of years. As
Certainly
there's
possible.
been an increase in sales of these products, there's marketing everywhere. It's, certainly worth
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any final comments from members, or is there anyone else, members of the public who wanted to speak? Okay, thank you all. Oh,
Quickly, there's a couple other things that I picked up. They're pretty minor, so I'll communicate that with you.
okay, thank you, Ms. Needham. Thank you all for being here. We are adjourned. Oh, we're unadjourned.
I just need you out. I'm sorry, I want to apologize. I don't have the Summer Economic Effects Distributors well. Mr. Nacho put that together. It estimates a $1 million annual losses to loss purchasers.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Going once, going twice.
Oh.
Adjourned.
I think the actual